There is a truth about attraction that very few people ever truly understand. It's not your beauty, not your body, not your words that keep him awake at night. It's not the photos you post or the sweet messages you once sent. It's not even the memory of the most passionate moments you shared together. What truly lingers in his mind, what refuses to let him go, is something much more elusive: intrigue. It's that quiet uncertainty that keeps echoing in his thoughts, the subtle tension of not knowing whether he still has you or whether he's already lost you. This tiny flicker of doubt becomes a constant vibration in his mind, a thought that won't let him rest, because men are not obsessed with what they understand. They are obsessed with what they can't decipher. That is where the secret lies, the kind of truth that isn't spoken in loud declarations, but whispered through presence, tone, silence. The more predictable you are, the less space you take in his mind. The more mystery you radiate, not through games, but through calmness, silence, and inner depth. The stronger his need becomes to understand you. And in that need, a bond begins to form. An emotional connection that does not fade with time, but deepens quietly beneath the surface. To reach that place, there is an intelligent way of speaking. A way that plants small seeds in his mind without him realizing it. A way that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't seek attention, but awakens reflection. Words that don't ask for an answer, but create a lingering echo inside him. Imagine this moment. It's late at night. The house is quiet. He lies in the dark, staring at the ceiling. And then suddenly he remembers that one question you asked him. It wasn't ordinary. It wasn't something shallow like, "What are you thinking?" or "What's wrong?" It was something deeper. A question that touched a part of him he didn't even know existed. That question made him see himself through your eyes. Vulnerable, human, real. It wasn't about you at all. It was about him, and that's why it stays. Now, in the quiet darkness, his mind turns it over and over again, searching for meaning. Wondering what you meant, why you said it, what you saw when you looked at him. Because here's the truth. Predictable women are forgotten. But a woman who makes him think, who gently invites him to see himself differently, becomes unforgettable. She becomes the quiet puzzle his mind cannot put away. She becomes a reflection of something deeper within himself. When you radiate this calm emotional mystery, you're not being distant. You're being whole. You are like a book with chapters still unwritten, a story that promises more. You give just enough for him to want to keep reading. Your silence is not empty. It's full of meaning. Your calmness is not indifference. It's confidence. Your depth is not complication. It's self-awareness. And in this quiet depth lies the art of the question. A question asked not to demand an answer, but to awaken a thought that will not leave him. You ask it with serenity, with a soft gaze, and then let it go, like releasing a feather into the wind. Because the true power of that moment does not lie in the words themselves, but in everything that happens after. The way you say it matters as much as the question itself. Men are instinctively trained to sense hidden intentions, to defend themselves from neediness or manipulation. That's why your energy must be pure, detached, grounded. No anxious eyes searching for reassurance. No tight shoulders revealing nervousness. No voice trembling with expectation. When you confront a man directly, with words like, "Why didn't you call?" or "What are we?" you awaken his defense mechanisms. His brain switches into self-protection. He prepares excuses, deflects, builds walls. In that state, nothing you say reaches him. Even genuine emotion gets lost because pressure never creates openness. It creates escape. That's why calmness is everything. When you're calm, when your energy says "I need nothing from you," you become magnetic. The moment you look at him with that gentle, knowing peace, he feels something rare, safety. Because most people he meets are restless, anxious, needing something. But your serenity feels different. It draws him in. Then comes the smile. Small, effortless, almost invisible. Not flirtatious, not challenging. A smile that says you know something he doesn't. A smile with mystery, warmth, and quiet confidence. The smile of a woman who no longer plays old games, who has seen life, felt pain, grown wiser. That smile disarms him. Because he expects confrontation, but finds composure. He expects tension, but finds stillness. And in that stillness, curiosity awakens. What is she thinking? What does she mean? Why is she so calm? His mind begins to wander, searching for understanding. And right in that suspended moment, when he's open, curious, and unguarded, that's when you ask the question. Not with preparation, not with build-up, but lightly, as if it simply came to you. No explanation, no justification. Just the question itself, pure and unadorned. This is the hardest part, to resist the need to explain. To let silence hold the weight of your words. Because the moment you start explaining, you weaken the magic. You reveal uncertainty. You tell him you don't trust your own voice. But when you ask and then stop, when you let the question breathe, you allow it to take root in his mind. You leave a small open loop that his brain will want to close. And that is where your power lies. So ask it softly, let it land, and then move on. Don't stare at him waiting. Don't fill the silence with nervous laughter or chatter. Maybe smile, maybe change the subject, or maybe simply say, I have to go. Leave him with that open space. Because unresolved moments live longer than finished ones. The mind hates open endings. It needs to solve them, understand them, complete them. So he'll keep returning to that instant in his head, trying to make sense of what you meant, what you saw, what you truly feel. And every time he does, he'll think of you. That is the art of emotional intrigue. The art of planting a seed that grows not because you water it with attention, but because you leave it in the dark to find its own roots. This question, this single moment, has the power to transform how he experiences you. Not as another woman who wants answers, but as the woman who asks the one question he can't stop thinking about. And the question itself? It is simple. Almost too simple to carry such weight. Have you ever wondered what you really feel when I'm not there? That's all. But within that simplicity lies everything. The pause, the doubt, the truth, the mirror. That question is deceptively simple. On the surface, it almost seems innocent. But underneath, it carries a depth few can comprehend. It asks him to pause, to step out of his habitual way of thinking, to reflect on his own inner world. It doesn't demand an answer. It doesn't force confession. It merely nudges him to look inward. Men, by nature, often operate on autopilot when it comes to feelings. They feel yes, but rarely dissect why. Emotions are often acted upon, not analyzed. Comfort lies in routine, in predictability, in answering questions quickly to preserve control. But your question interrupts that autopilot. It creates a pause, a disruption in the ordinary flow of thought. And when routine is disrupted, the mind searches for meaning. It wants closure. It wants understanding. And in that search, it returns to you. Here lies the brilliance. The question doesn't ask him about you directly. It asks him about himself. It asks him to explore his own emotions, to confront what he may have ignored or rationalized away. In that confrontation, he sees himself more clearly. And in seeing himself, he sees your presence in a new light. He remembers the moments he felt something he hadn't labeled. Moments that now gain significance through reflection. It is not manipulation. It is revelation. You are not creating feelings. You are exposing what has always existed beneath the surface. Like a mirror held up in silence, your question allows him to recognize his own truth. And once that recognition occurs, it cannot be taken away. Notice the distinction. Superficial attraction fades with novelty. Physical allure can capture attention. Humor can spark connection. Charm can invite temporary closeness. But none of these create permanence. They live in the present, dependent on continued stimulation. What you are cultivating is different. You are planting something enduring. You are creating a mental and emotional presence that lingers, independent of proximity, appearances, or daily interactions. The real magic lies in your ability to disengage after planting the seed. Many fail at this stage. They ask the question, see the flicker of curiosity in his eyes, and immediately rush to clarify, explain, or follow up. They try to hold on to the momentum, to ensure that the question produces the reaction they desire. But that urgency destroys the effect. Silence is your ally. Space is your friend. When you release the question without expectation, without need, without follow-up, You allow it to take root in his subconscious, and the mind, left to its own devices, cannot ignore an unresolved question of emotional significance. It returns to it again and again, seeking resolution, understanding, insight. This is where most attempts at influence fail. Impatience. The human mind is uncomfortable with ambiguity. But when you resist the urge to fill that ambiguity, you are no longer responding to him. You are responding to the truth of your own inner strength. You are saying without words, I trust this moment. I trust the power of thought. I trust that clarity will arrive in its own time. And in that trust, he senses something rare, a confidence unshakable, a calm presence that does not demand but commands attention simply by existing. Because confidence like this is not loud or forceful. It is quiet. It does not chase. It does not plead. It radiates a certainty that is magnetic precisely because it is rare. Now imagine his mind at night. The question you asked has returned, not in a fleeting way, but in layers, spiraling through his thoughts. What do I really feel when she isn't here? He begins to replay interactions, noticing subtleties he missed. He recalls moments of laughter, arguments, silence, and intimacy. He analyzes what felt different when you were present versus absent. Slowly, a map forms in his mind, a landscape in which you occupy an unmistakable space. This is the space of enduring attraction. It is not born of scarcity, of forcing distance to provoke longing. It is born of presence within the mind, a presence that does not rely on physical proximity or constant communication. A presence that grows stronger through reflection, not repetition. And here is another nuance: timing. This question is most potent when asked at the quietest moments. Late at night, in the calm after conversation, when emotional walls are lowered and the mind is receptive. Timing is subtle, not forced. It is not something you schedule or plan with anxious anticipation. It is a natural insertion, a feather dropped at the perfect place. The effect is cumulative. One moment does not make him obsess. One question does not immediately unravel defenses. But like small ripples across water, each reflection broadens the impact. Each time his mind returns to it, he experiences a deeper level of awareness. And the beauty is he cannot analyze or control this process. It happens quietly, internally, without your interference. This is the difference between attraction based on need and attraction based on depth. Need-driven attraction relies on absence, scarcity, or drama to create tension. It is reactive. It demands energy to maintain, constantly requiring reinforcement. Depth-driven attraction is internal. It requires no games, no chase. It is created once, planted once, and allowed to grow naturally within the mind and emotions of the other person. You may ask, does this mean he will always be thinking of me? Not necessarily, but what it guarantees is that he cannot ignore the space you occupy, that you have touched something profound within him, that he is aware, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, that your presence or absence carries weight beyond surface-level attachment. This is also where emotional self-mastery becomes essential. Asking the question is only half the process. The other half is how you carry yourself afterward. Your demeanor must remain composed. You do not revisit the question. You do not justify it. You do not seek validation. Every move after the question reinforces the principle that you are not dependent on his response for your own equilibrium. And that detachment is what makes you unforgettable. Not distance as a tactic, not scarcity as a manipulation, but inner completeness. A presence that requires nothing but exists fully, calmly, confidently. The question becomes a gateway, not a trap, not a demand, but an invitation for him to enter his own inner world, to see himself more clearly, and by extension, to see you as someone uniquely impactful. The genius of this method lies in its subtlety. There is no need for dramatic gestures, no pressure, no games, just a single, carefully considered question, delivered with calm authority, followed by silence, leaving space for reflection. Over time, this simplicity becomes extraordinary, because what humans remember, what leaves an indelible mark, is not effort or insistence. It is presence, depth, and the ability to provoke reflection. The woman who accomplishes this does not chase him. She does not demand validation. She does not seek constant attention. She simply exists in a way that he cannot forget, because she has opened a door in his consciousness that remains accessible long after she leaves the room. And that is the difference between ordinary attraction and enduring fascination, between fleeting desire and lasting imprint, between being someone he occasionally thinks of, and being someone who occupies his mind, even in moments of silence, even when life moves on, even when distance separates. It is not about control. It is about clarity, calm, and depth. It is about creating a connection that is psychological, emotional, and enduring. A connection that does not rely on the external, but exists independently within the inner workings of his mind. And that is why, after the question, you remain silent. That is why you do not explain. That is why you do not fill the space. Because your silence is not emptiness. It is the container in which his thoughts grow. It is the vacuum that allows reflection, curiosity, and longing to form organically. The quiet after your words becomes sacred, a space he cannot fill with anything but his own realization. And in that sacred space he finds you again and again, not because you pursued him, not because you manipulated him, but because you asked the one question that matters, and then trusted the process, trusted yourself, and trusted the space in between. By now, you may begin to sense that this isn't about the words alone. Words are just vehicles. What carries the true weight is your presence, your energy, your emotional posture. The question itself is simple, almost casual. Have you ever wondered what you really feel when I'm not there? But it becomes extraordinary because of how it is delivered and how it is followed by intentional absence. After you ask it, there is no rush to see its effect. There is no need to gauge, no desire to analyze. You do not linger, you do not lean in, you do not fill the silence with nervous chatter. You step back naturally with calm assurance, because the human mind, left to process a meaningful, unresolved question, begins its own work. It replays interactions. It reinterprets old moments. It measures absence and presence in ways it never did before. And the more he reflects, the more he encounters you inside himself. This is where patience becomes your power. True influence requires that you resist the urge to control the outcome. The more you try to steer his thoughts, the weaker the effect becomes. By allowing him to navigate the psychological space on his own, you create an environment where he cannot help but notice, over and over again, the impact you have. You are no longer someone he responds to externally. You are something he experiences internally. Think about how rare this is in human interaction. Most people demand attention, validate themselves through reaction, or try to extract certainty. Most women chase answers, insist on explanations, or over-explain their intentions. And most men, trained by both instinct and social expectation, have built defenses against this. They instinctively push back against neediness, against overt expectation, against anything that threatens autonomy. But you are different. You do not threaten him. You do not chase. You do not demand. You simply ask a question, radiate calm, and then allow it to settle. This is the subtle genius of the technique. You operate from completion, not lack. You are whole. You are complete. Your curiosity does not betray need. Your interest does not imply dependence. And that is magnetic because it is rare. Few people exist in life without anxiety, without compulsion, without urgency for validation. When someone does, it draws attention effortlessly, because it contrasts with the typical human pattern. And here is something even more profound. The question invites self-discovery. It does not ask, "Do you miss me?" or "Do you care about me?" Those are shallow questions, easily answered by habit, ego, or social expectation. Your question asks him to look deeper. What do I actually feel when she is absent? It forces him to confront a truth he may have ignored. It makes him analyze his own emotions, rather than simply producing a superficial answer. And once that self-reflection begins, it cannot be easily stopped. Every memory he recalls of you becomes more vivid, more meaningful. Every ordinary interaction is suddenly reinterpreted. The joke he laughed at, the silence you shared, the casual touch, the way you looked at him, all of it gains new weight. Your absence highlights the spaces you once filled. And in realizing that, he begins to differentiate between habitual presence and true emotional impact. Habitual presence is easy to replace. Routine interactions are forgettable. But emotional impact, being the one who touches his consciousness in a meaningful way, is enduring. That impact is not about control or manipulation. It is about planting clarity in the mind, about inviting reflection, about allowing him to see what has always existed, but perhaps remained unexamined. And the longer the question hangs, unresolved, the deeper its effect. Because human brains hate ambiguity. They crave closure. They crave meaning. They attempt to resolve uncertainty internally. And when that uncertainty is emotionally charged, it becomes a persistent thought. It circles through his mind. It sparks reflection during mundane moments. Driving, showering, waiting for something, lying in bed. And every time he thinks about it, he thinks about you. Not in a superficial way, not out of guilt or obligation, but because his own emotional awareness has been activated. The question has unlocked something inside him. He cannot undo the process. He cannot unsee what you have shown him through your presence. Your depth, your calmness, and your carefully delivered words. Now consider the timing of the withdrawal. If you ask, then linger or explain or seek confirmation, the magic diminishes. If you insist on hearing his reaction immediately, you invite defensiveness. You signal uncertainty, need, or anxiety. You disrupt the process. Instead, after asking, you step back, leave him with the question, and trust that his mind will do the rest. That trust is not passive. It is active. It is an exercise in emotional mastery. It demonstrates that you do not require validation from him. It communicates that you are already grounded, secure, and independent. And paradoxically, that security enhances your influence. When a person senses that you operate from strength rather than lack, they are drawn in, not repelled. They want to understand you, to explore the mystery, to see the world through your lens. And here is where the long-term effect begins to form. Over days, weeks, or even months, your question continues to echo. It becomes a lens through which he evaluates his feelings and experiences. Every memory with you, every emotional reaction he notices in himself, is filtered through that simple inquiry. What do I really feel when she is not there? This is not about control, not about manipulation, not about forcing him to feel a certain way. It is about visibility, making him aware of his own emotions, his own patterns, his own truths. You are guiding him gently into self-awareness. And when a person recognizes their own feelings, they remember who helped them see them. You become the catalyst for his reflection. And that is unforgettable. Because we do not forget the people who simply passed through our lives, or the ones who entertained us, or the ones who made us laugh. We forget them easily, but we remember those who make us see ourselves differently. Those who awaken understanding we did not have before. Those who leave us changed even subtly, in ways that resonate long after the interaction ends. This is the difference between fleeting attraction and lasting fascination. Between someone who is noticed and someone who occupies the mind. Between temporary desire and enduring presence. And it all begins with one question, asked from a place of calm certainty, delivered without expectation, followed by deliberate silence. The moment you master this, you shift the entire dynamic. You are no longer competing for attention. You are no longer trying to secure validation. You are no longer attempting to manipulate emotion. You exist in a space beyond that, a space where your presence, your question, and your energy create an effect so profound, it cannot be ignored, forgotten, or replaced. And here's the final subtlety. Your influence grows not from intensity, but from restraint. The quieter you are after asking, the more powerful the impact becomes. The less you seek to explain, justify, or guide, the more his mind does the work itself. He begins to attribute depth to your character, significance to your presence, and mystery to your essence, all without you having to say a word. That is the essence of the technique. One carefully chosen question, delivered with calm authority, followed by intentional withdrawal. A single spark that sets a process in motion. A process that takes root in his mind, shapes his self-awareness, and ensures that your presence continues to resonate long after you are gone. And the beauty of it? It does not rely on superficial traits, constant contact, or artificial scarcity. It relies on depth, presence, and self-mastery. It is internal, not external. Psychological, not theatrical. Timeless, not fleeting. Because the woman who achieves this is not trying to make him notice her. She already occupies a place in his mind that cannot be removed. She is not chasing reaction. She is quietly allowing insight to grow. And that is what makes her unforgettable. Now, let's explore the deeper layers of why this works. Not as a trick, not as manipulation, but as a demonstration of psychological and emotional mastery. Because what makes a question like, "Have you ever wondered what you really feel when I'm not there?" so powerful is not the content alone. It's the context, the timing, and most importantly, the energy behind it. Men, especially in emotional context, are wired to seek certainty, control, and closure. They navigate feelings through a framework of logic, routine, and predictability. This is why direct confrontation, incessant questioning, or attempts to extract emotion often fail. When you push, prod, or demand, you trigger defenses. He responds from ego, pride, or fear of vulnerability. But your question bypasses all of that. It doesn't demand an answer. It doesn't corner him. It doesn't challenge his autonomy. It is simple, neutral, yet deeply potent. By asking it with calm confidence, you invite self-reflection, not reaction. You plant a seed that he must water himself. And when the seed grows, it grows in authenticity. Because it originates from his own insight rather than an external push. He begins to notice the gaps between what he says he feels and what he truly feels. He begins to confront truths he may have ignored. About his emotions, about your presence, and about himself. Consider the subtle psychological mechanics here. A question left unresolved triggers what is called cognitive tension. The mind cannot rest when something meaningful remains open. It will seek closure. It will replay the moment, examine possibilities, search for hidden meaning. By stepping back after asking, you allow that tension to exist fully. You do not fill it, you do not diminish it, and you do not attempt to guide it. You let the mind do the work, and it does relentlessly, and often with increasing intensity over time. And this is where your emotional strength becomes crucial. You cannot ask such a question from insecurity. You cannot radiate need or impatience. Your confidence must be rooted in your own completeness. You must already feel whole without depending on his reaction or acknowledgement. Only then does the question carry weight. When it is delivered from a place of calm authority, it resonates. It creates an internal echo that he cannot ignore. Your demeanor after asking is equally important. Silence, slight smiles, calm withdrawal. These are not accidental behaviors. They are the framework in which the question thrives. They demonstrate that you do not require immediate resolution. They communicate that you operate from stability, not neediness. And in that space, his mind is free to explore, reflect, and return to you in ways that words alone cannot provoke. The long-term effect is remarkable. Over days, weeks, or months, the question continues to replay internally. He thinks about it unconsciously while working, driving, or resting. He measures his reactions. He replays interactions. Every memory of your shared time takes on a richer significance. He begins to notice subtle patterns. The calmness you radiated, the depth of your gaze, the rare combination of curiosity and detachment. Slowly, unconsciously, you become not just a memory, but a reference point, a standard for presence, depth, and emotional resonance. And here is the crucial distinction. This method does not create artificial attachment. It does not rely on scarcity, absence, or drama to manufacture longing. Those techniques, while temporarily effective, are fragile. They depend on constant effort to maintain. What you are cultivating is internal, enduring, and resilient. It is attraction rooted in reflection, presence, and psychological impact. It exists independently of proximity or external circumstance. The woman who masters this becomes unforgettable, not because she is dramatic or manipulative, but because she occupies an irreplaceable space in his consciousness. Every time he reflects, every time he examines his feelings, your question acts as a catalyst. He returns to it, examines it, and in doing so, returns to you. You do not chase, you do not plead, and you do not control the outcome. You simply exist in a way that demands reflection. Let's also explore the profound difference between missing someone out of habit and missing someone because they genuinely matter. Habitual attachment is easy to rationalize. It is routine, convenience, comfort. He may occasionally think of you, but it is superficial and replaceable. Emotional necessity, on the other hand, arises when a presence has touched something internal, meaningful, and transformative. Your question, asked correctly, distinguishes these two states. It forces him to confront whether he misses you because of habit, or because your absence truly creates a void he cannot ignore. This distinction matters deeply. Most people never recognize it consciously. They confuse routine or nostalgia with need. They believe that repeated thoughts are superficial rather than insightful. By planting this question, you give him the chance to recognize the truth himself, and self-recognition is lasting. The moment he sees clearly, he cannot unsee. The moment he understands, he remembers. And here is where your mastery becomes subtle genius. You do not respond to his processing. You do not chase feedback. You do not interpret his thoughts or actions. You remain complete, calm, and confident. This is what makes your presence magnetic. It is stable, unshakable, and independent. You do not rely on his acknowledgement to validate yourself. And that independence, when combined with depth and mystery, is irresistible. Over time, this method transforms the dynamic entirely. He begins to think of you not only in terms of desire or attraction, but in terms of reflection, self-awareness, and emotional resonance. You are no longer a fleeting presence. You become part of his internal landscape. You occupy a space that cannot be replaced by anyone else, because your effect was not superficial. It was psychological, emotional, and enduring. And that is the ultimate truth. Attraction that lasts does not come from chasing attention. It comes from creating impact, from planting seeds of reflection that continue to grow long after the moment has passed, from asking questions that open doors in consciousness rather than demanding answers, from embodying calm, depth, and completeness that are rare in a world of restlessness. When you achieve this, you understand a deeper principle of human connection. The people who leave the most profound impression are not those who dominate our attention in the present moment, but those who change the way we see ourselves, and in doing so, shape the way we experience life. Your question, your calmness, your withdrawal, your silent confidence, these are not tricks. They are a reflection of understanding, maturity, and emotional intelligence. They demonstrate that attraction is not about scarcity, manipulation, or superficial appeal. It is about depth, resonance, and the ability to provoke self-reflection. And in this way, you are unforgettable. Not because you demanded it, not because you forced it, not because you chased attention, but because you left an imprint on his mind and soul that he cannot ignore, forget, or replace. You have planted a seed of awareness, and now it grows quietly, persistently, and powerfully, creating a lasting connection that endures far beyond presence, time, or circumstance. This is the wisdom of being truly unforgettable, the art of presence, question, and silence, the mastery of influence without control, the power of depth without drama, and the knowledge that attraction, when rooted in the mind and emotions, becomes something permanent, resilient, and meaningful. And so the question lingers, not as a test, not as a trap, not as a demand, but as a quiet, enduring prompt for self-reflection. Have you ever wondered what you really feel when I'm not there? And in that reflection he will keep returning to you.